astonishing Miss Watson, could you tell us the man they call Harold the H? Peacock-a-doodle-doo with the Ipswich history. Can you put Harold up for me, please?
Sure.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Harold.
And same to you, Danny. Yes, I'm here. And look, a big shout-out, Merry Christmas, to listeners Ollie and Ruth, who are cycling the Brisbane Valley Rail Trail right now and should be riding into Ipswich today. Big shout-out to them.
How do you flan your sister, Sophie? Big shout-out to Soph. Now,
you can give a shout-out to absolutely everyone because there's so many people listening.
There are. Now, you're going to talk about Miss Watson, astonishing Miss Watson. Tell us all about this.
Yeah, look, she was amazing. Look, back in the early 20th century, before the First World War, some remarkable adventurers were being widely talked about. Now, 40 years before Everest was conquered, peaks of the Himalayas were being climbed for the first time by a Mrs. Fanny Workman. And she named one after the king. Then there was Miss Mary Hall, who had several narrow escapes while she trekked from the Cape of Good Hope to South Africa all the way up to Egypt. There was Miss Ella Sykes, who trekked right across Persia, and Miss Beatrix Grimshaw, who explored alone across Pacific Islands and unknown cannibal territory of Papua. And then there was Miss E.L.C. Watson. Now, the E.L.C. stands for Ellen Louisa Collins, but she was always called Miss Watson or Miss E.L.C. Watson. Now, through the 1890s, Miss Watson held roles at some of the most prestigious educational institutions in Australia. And importantly, she was the inaugural mathematics teacher at Ipswich Girls Grammar School when the school opened in 1892. Now, she became a gold medal essayist, and in 1902, Miss Watson left and went to London, where she began work as a journalist. Now, there she contributed important articles to the London Daily Press in an era where women just didn't do those things. Now, Miss Watson was 28 years old when her fame took a leap across the British Empire. That's when, in 1903, she wrote a number of popular articles for the Daily Express newspaper following the mysterious disappearance of a female doctor. Now, the doctor was Miss Fanny Hickman.
There's a couple of Fannies in the story.
Yeah, and she went missing in Richmond in southwest London for 2 months until her headless body was discovered under some thick rhododendrons. Those killer rhododendrons will get you every time.
They will.
Now, meanwhile, Miss Watson, she was put on assignment by the Daily Express. She herself disappeared to test Londoners' ability to find a missing person. For 2 months, she wrote daily reports of her activities, and the paper offered £100 to anyone who could find her. Anyway, look, the doctor's decapitated body was discovered before Miss Watson could be found. And then it was in 1912 when Miss Watson's fame became global. Now, while the American Mrs. Workman was making climbing records for women in the Himalayas, our Miss Watson became the first person in the world, man or woman, to cross South Africa by motorbike. Now, her 6-month, 2,000-mile journey was on a 2.5 horsepower or 290cc motorcyclosh motorbike. Now, it began in Cape Town through Kimberley, Johannesburg, Pretoria, Ladysmith and Pietermaritzburg to Durban. Now, her equipment included a small suitcase, 2 tins of petrol, a spare tyre, engine parts, an overcoat, and after much persuasion from friends, also a revolver for protection. Yeah, she didn't carry much. Her only provisions were tea, sugar, and tea-making utensils, which she carefully packed into a tea basket. Of course. Now, although once the journey began, the tea basket was the first thing to go. It was just excess luggage. But her stories of adventure were published throughout her ordeal, and she returned to London. By then she was sharing time between England and Australia. She was more famous than ever. She was hosting tea parties at the Lyceum Club in London.
Of course.
Now, Yeah, look, this was the women's club founded at one of the most prestigious addresses at Piccadilly, which today the building is the RAF Club. Now, its president then was Lady Balfour, who was the daughter of the Earl of Balfour, and she was the voice of the organic food movement. She was a groundbreaker as well. Now, Miss Watson was a delegate at the second biennial conference of the British Dominion's Women's Suffrage Union.
Oh, no.
Now, she was a leading suffragette at a time of massive change. Now, Danny, you would know that adult suffrage movements in Australia led the world from the 1840s to the early 20th century.
That's a fact.
Yeah, look, women's suffrage in South Australia in 1895 was the first such constitutional change in the world. And a little known fact is it even came before universal male suffrage in Tasmania.
How we got it wrong.
Yeah, Tasmania. But anyway, through the 1920s...
The girls a vote.
Now, through the 1920s, Miss Watson maintained a membership of the Writers' Club in Norfolk Street in the Strand in London. She was just continuing to keep that high profile. So, Danny, Miss E.L.C. Watson, she was a teacher, journalist, adventurer and suffragette of international significance. And she started here as the Ipswich Girls Grammar School very first mathematics teacher. So, Danny, you just never know what amazing people made their start right here in Ipswich.
A lot of people made famous came out of Ipswich.
Absolutely, and there's a lot you don't even hear of, like Miss Watson.
But you're doing a bit for giving them some airtime. So how do we read this story and so many other stories about Ipswich?
Yeah, look, there's around 250 stories about Ipswich online, about 400 short stories all up.
Yeah.
On my website, you can go to historyouthere.com.
Historyouthere.com. There he is, the famous Harold the H. Peacock-a-doodle-doo. Harold Peacock, he's known as, and you'll hear him about this time each week on West Bremer Radio, and you'll also hear him on what day with you?
Every Tuesday.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
On West Bremer Radio. Have a great weekend. Happy Christmas, mate. Thanks for all your support. And I know you're a man of belief, so God bless you and Holy Christmas to you.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to everyone.
All the best.